right. Glad that you've joined us this morning. Thanks for riding with us today. We're tackling a ton of issues every day. And this morning we're going to hit on the EPA and how they've conceded that they cannot produce the data to justify clean air rules. Wow. These people are instituting rules and regulations that parade about as law, which have no constitutional justification. They're destroying homes and families. They're destroying businesses and industry. They're stripping the livelihood of Americans in a globalist agenda, and they don't even have the data to justify and back it up. There's no empirical evidence. There's no peer-reviewed science. This is commissioned science. You know what commissioned science is? Okay. If I commission you as an artist to manufacture for me a sculpture or a piece of art, a drawing, a painting, I've paid you to do something specific. I give you an idea of what I'm looking for, and I expect that you're going to come back and give me exactly what I want. Guess what? That's exactly how the EPA works. They go out and find scientists who are willing to sell themselves and their ethics and their integrity and their honor for a grant. Boom. That's it, ladies and gentlemen, in a nutshell. Corruption at its earliest, at its most basic, at its most Neanderthal. This is tyranny alive, well, growing by the day. I'm reminded of that movie I saw when I was a kid in the 60s called The Blob, about this thing that lands from space, an alien organism. And it's, the size when it lands, it's the size of a pea. And it's like just this jelly. And it eats a grasshopper, and it grows, and then it eats a mouse, and then it grows, and it eats a dog, and it eats before you know it, this thing is so big, it's moving and eating whole towns. Steve McQueen, I think, was in it. And I don't remember, Natalie Wood or something. And at one point, they're in a bowling alley, and this thing has completely surrounded the building, and it's oozing in through the windows. All it is on this rapacious appetite to eat, and grow. Ladies and gentlemen, that's your federal government. They have no concern for you. They have you are food for them. You are a commodity, like the tomato or the bean or the orange to the farmer, like the soybean. Do you think that the farmer, as he's gathering and collecting the millions upon millions upon millions of soybeans that he's harvesting, do you think he's sitting there seriously worried about destroying one bean because it gets crushed underfoot? Of course not. And that's exactly how these elitists and traders treat you. Like a cow, like a sheep. You're here to be sheared. That's it. You have no say in the matter. You don't have any option in the matter. You don't have anything to say about whether or not you're milked. And at some point in time, if you become a problem to that farmer, then you're culled from the herd. You're a commodity to these people. Their only interest in you comes around just before Election Day, when they come up and say, "See what we're doing for you? We brought home all of this money." There's no money. It's our money. The federal government doesn't produce a damn thing. Nothing. They take your money from you, they scrape their cut off the top, and then they give some back to you. Some. 7 months after being subpoenaed by Congress, Environmental Protection Agency, EPA Administrator, Trader Extraordinaire, Gina McCarthy, concedes that her agency does not have and cannot produce all the scientific data used for decades, ladies and gentlemen, to justify numerous rules and regulations under the Clean Air Act. These are rules and regulations which parade about as law because you can be fined, your business can be shut down, you can be imprisoned. That's a law. You can call it a rule. There's no justification for it. Only Congress may pass law. Verbatim out of the Constitution, in case you've forgotten. In a March 7th letter to the House Science, Space, and Technology Committee Chairman, Lamar Smith, a Republican out of Texas, McCarthy admitted that EPA cannot produce all the original data from the 1993 Harvard Six Cities study and the American Cancer Society's ACS 1995 Cancer Prevention Study, which is currently housed at New York University. Both studies concluded that fine airborne particles measuring 2.5 micrograms or less, 1/30th the diameter of a human hair, are killing thousands of Americans every day. These epidemiological studies are cited by the EPA as the scientific foundation for their Clean Air Act regulations that restrict particulate emissions from vehicles, power plants, and factories. You want to know why they're shutting down coal plants? Because of this Clean Air Act. But where's the science to back it up? There isn't any. They concede it themselves. It's all a lie. It's all a fabricated sham. There is none of it, and it does not exist. They've come under fire recently for exposing volunteers, not volunteers. They paid them. They went out and they scraped the barrel, misled people into being guinea pigs for testing on humans, ladies and gentlemen, and they never informed them that this pipe they were going to stick in their mouth, that they were going to breathe in diesel exhaust, was likely to kill them. The agency has recently come under fire for exposing volunteers to concentrated levels of particulate matter without informing them of the risks, a practice that the chairman of the House Science Subcommittee on Investigations called despicable. It's not despicable, it's flippin' criminal. If you were a drug company and you did that kind of a test on someone and you didn't inform them, hey, taking a little red pill might kill you, you could go to prison for that. But not if you're the EPA. You just called the dirty name of despicable. You're despicable. Now, step up here and sign up so you can get your pension. We, of course, wouldn't want any federal government employee to miss out on their pension, paid for by all those peasants and the peons of the world. I'm tired of hearing about subpoenas. I'm tired of hearing about investigations. I'm tired of hearing about committees. I want perp walks. I want people who were in suits now in orange. I want them in handcuffs. I want them in ankle chains. I want them standing there before judges being prosecuted. I want Harry Reid prosecuted for what he's done here with the BLM. I want John Boehner prosecuted. I want Barack Obama prosecuted. I want Eric Holder in prison in chains, not in some cushy federal joint where he lives on a farm and he milks cows. I want him in the same degrading conditions in a federal prison with bars and a toilet where he's got to take a crap and everybody and their brother watches. And you should demand no less. Kathleen Sebelius from the HHS and the Obamacare debacle, please. Ladies and gentlemen, she went out to the companies, the insurance companies that she's in charge of regulating, and said, donate to this campaign thing to boost Barack Obama's brand and Obamacare. What's the implication? If you don't, I will penalize you because I oversee your company. Not a whiff. Not a whiff. Lois Lerner, the IRS. How many hundreds of people in the IRS knew, participated, cooperated, assisted in utilizing the IRS as a weapon against the political enemies of this tyrannical monster who's not even an American citizen, has fraudulently faked 2 birth certificates that we know about, admits he wasn't born in the United States of America, shows a false draft card, which has been proven repeatedly to be false, and owns a Social Security number of a 90-year-old woman who died in Connecticut, a state he never even lived in. How much more will you wait for, America? How much more? How much more will you tolerate? Tomorrow I'm going to blow your mind. I'm going to talk about the National Guard following a direct order. And by the way, the federal government has no right to directly order the National Guard. Only the governor of a state does. This shows you what George Bush did when he rescinded and pulled the authority of National Guards away from their sovereign state authority and put them up underneath the federal government. You want to know who's going to oppress and kick in your front door looking for guns and weapons? It's going to be your own National Guard. They're practicing, they're being trained and educated right now. I know it for a fact. I know plenty of them in the Guard. I speak to them. They are training them to herd you like cattle. The National Guard's following a direct order to turn all of their Apache attack assault helicopters over to the Army. You know what they're going to get back? They're going to get back a bunch of Black Hawks. That's the equivalent of it's an advanced helicopter, don't misunderstand me. But it is not an attack helicopter, and it cannot be used for defensive actions against the likes of an Apache. One is like an eagle, the other is like a sparrow or a robin. One is a tiger, and the other's a bunny rabbit. So they're taking away the tigers, and they're handing them bunny rabbits. They're taking away their attack dog, the state National Guards, and what are they giving them back? A lapdog Chihuahua puppy. Lots of bark, no bite. Field goal material. But, ladies and gentlemen, our nation has been betrayed on a global, catastrophic, criminal, satanic, demonic scale. Boy, I know I'm intense. You know, I had an email from woman one day, and she said to me, "You're too intense. I can't watch all your program." Guess what? If I'm too intense for you because I'm exposing to you the truth of what's really, truly happening, then that's willful. You know, you're sitting there pulling the wool over your own eyes. Your tone. I don't care. See it. Recognize it for what it is. We're talking about your life here, and the lives of your family, and the lives of your children, and the life of our nation. I can't generate enough passion about that. The EPA admits openly that they've been lying to us since the 90s. They had to have this information subpoenaed from them, and after the subpoena was issued, then they come forth and say, yeah, we've been lying to you for the last 20 years. We have no science. It's all in our heads. It's a fantasy. We can't produce any of the data that justifies all the clean air rules that we've created. And by the way, the same thing with the Clean Water Act that the United States EPA is trying to seize the property of every American from. They refuse to release that science as well. So if they did it with the Clean Air Act and they've been doing it for 20 years, it's not surprising, and it shouldn't come as there shouldn't even be a question in your mind as to whether or not they would do it over the Clean Water Act, because they've gotten away with it for 20 years under the Clean Air Act. I mean, if a guy goes out and he robs a bank and he's successful with it the first time, and he says, wow, that was a pretty inventive, creative way I robbed that bank, and I didn't get caught, it's very, very likely he's going to use the same tactic again. Why? Because it was successful. The EPA has been stonewalling the Congress for years and years and years. And it's not just started with Obama, although it's ramped up in a hockey stick format under Obama. They were doing the same thing under George the Traitor Bush. Why am I calling George Bush a traitor? Because you're such a loyal Republican. Because you've been buffaloed for decades. You've been buffaloed for the last 12, 13 presidents in a row. We haven't had a legitimate president in this country since before 1900. They're all traitors. They're all scum. They have sold you out to a corporatocracy fascist government that is paid for and bought and paid for by corporate dollars who utilize government as their police force to accomplish their task and their agenda. And that is basically an agenda based on nothing more than we need their wealth, and you can generate wealth with us and power from it, which you can assuage your desperate need. We'll pay you to be our cop. And like any cop, as soon as you question their authority, boy, they flip off and go off in a rage. Look at the likes of Chuck Schumer and that scum up there. These people, if they were on fire, you shouldn't whip it out and pee on them to put them out. It's a waste of your bodily fluid. They all need to be charged with treason and dealt with accordingly. We're not talking about one incident. Ladies and gentlemen, the evidence is so mountainous. It's so empirical. We're talking mountains. You could recreate multiple Mount Everests with all of the evidence of the betrayal, the treason, the conniving, the scamming, the plotting, the evil, the betrayal. We're at a point where the EPA has clearly conceded they do not have in their possession the data necessary to fully comply, and in most cases, they never did possess the data. And guess what? The subpoena was issued as the EPA is moving now to finalize these new regulations that would place 90% of the United States population in non-attainment areas and impose an additional $90 billion in an annual burden on the United States economy. And there are two real scientific studies, two real pieces of science done by real researchers that question everything and throws all of their assumptions into doubt. These are assumptions, ladies and gentlemen, that they made, stating they had empirical background evidence to prove it. They never did. Stanley Young and Jesse Zia of the National Institute of Statistical Sciences published a paper last year questioning the EPA's reliance on the Harvard and Cancer Society studies, both of which found that breathing fine particulate matter resulted in increased mortality. Quote, there's no significant association of particulate matter 2.5 with longevity in the west of the United States. And they noted that our findings call into question the claims made by the original researchers. Another study by Johns Hopkins trained biostatistician Steve Malloy that attempts to duplicate the EPA's findings found, quote, no correlation between changes in ambient particulate matter mortality and any cause of death in California between 2007 and 2010. Quote, virtually every regulation proposed by the Obama administration has been justified by non-transparent data and unverifiable claims. Chairman Lamar Smith. This is secret science, ladies and gentlemen, that is being used to like a sponge in a bowl of liquid, draw the resources from America, draw the strength, draw the financial elasticity of our economy, draw our industry into out of the mix, out of the play. This is a concerted, willful effort to destroy the United States from within by traitors, dishonest brokers, alleged representatives who have abused their power. And nothing is worth. Look, it's one thing if you commit a crime. You're a Joe citizen, you commit a crime. It's a bad thing for you to do. And I'm talking about a real crime, not some crap like you got caught with 3 joints in your sock. I don't smoke pot, don't even believe in it, and don't think you should either. But I also don't think it's a crime. So, I'm talking about real crime. If you injure or hurt another person, or you injure their property, or you steal from them physically in some way, shape, or form, and you make them, you injure them financially, that's a crime. The EPA it's not limited just to the EPA. I can give you the names of 100 other 3-letter alphabet soup agencies that have been doing the same thing to Americans for decades. They are destroying our nation from within, and they are doing it for power, position, and money, and ideology. And when an official who's been elected or has been appointed utilizes and misuses their power to injure the citizenry that they are responsible to, treason. You know what the penalty is for treason? Death. All right, we're wrapping up our show today. Folks, I'm smoking mad. You should be too. I've had enough with the lies, and I've had enough with the abuse. I've had enough with the traitors. It's time for this country to take this nation back. We've done everything in our power to try to do this in a peaceful fashion. Am I calling for an armed resistance? No, I'm calling for resistance. But I am telling you right now that you better get your act together, because it isn't going to be long until they force that issue on us. You want proof? Go look at what happened over the weekend at the Bundy Ranch. You'll see. This ain't going to be long. And they're not going to tolerate the peons and the peasants rising up. All right, you've been listening to America's Voice Now. Please follow us on the web at americasvoicenow.org. Email me. If you can support us financially, please go to our website and do that. Or you can mail us a check or a money order. You can send it to America's Voice Now, P.O. Box 1195. And that's in West Plains, Missouri, 65775. I don't get paid to do this program. I've been doing it for 2.5 years. I pay for everything out of my pocket. There's some donations that come in, but never enough to cover the actual expenses. I promise you we don't abuse, and I never misuse your money. If it's just to cover our expenses. And believe me, they're far greater than anything that's donated. And I cover them out of my pocket, and I'm not a wealthy man. We need your help. You can mail it to America's Voice Now, P.O. Box 1195, West Plains, Missouri, 65775. Or you can go to our website and you can just make a donation through PayPal. Either way, we'll be grateful to you, and I would appreciate it. If you want to communicate with me directly, you can by sending me an email to mike@americasvoicenow.org. We're wrapping up for the day. I'll see you tomorrow morning. God bless. We'll be talking tomorrow morning about this Army stealing the helicopters, the attack helicopters from National Guard.